Hello and welcome to I Want to Fight Araki, a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure close analysis podcast. And today's probably going to be pretty short. It's going to be pretty short because we are covering episodes 19 and 20. Before we get into the summary, introductions, because we sometimes forget to do those. I'm Thomas.
And I'm Rat Jolene.
Maybe once we finish, if we finish if you finish Stone Ocean,
I will.
before the animation comes out, maybe we should do a video, like a general video on Stone Ocean.
Perhaps we should. Oh, that means I have to start writing notes about Stone Ocean.
I mean, I don't know. We'll talk about it later. Anyway,
God, I love Stone Ocean.
Read Stone Ocean and listen to this summary. Episode 19 begins with Kakyoin waking up in a mysterious amusement park on a Ferris wheel. The park is silent, but Kakyoin hears echoes of a baby crying. Shortly after, a dog appears next to him and balloons begin flying around Kakyoin. Attached to one of the balloons is a tarot card, that of death, and suddenly a scythe appears and stabs the dog through the head and pricks Kakyoin. The scythe nearly kills Kakyoin, but just before it does, Polnareff wakes up Kakyoin, revealing it to be a dream. Kakyoin can't remember anything about the dream, but notices the small cut on his hand. Polnareff and Kakyoin head outside to meet up with Jotaro and Joseph, who are securing transport, but as they leave the hotel, Kakyoin sees the dog from the dream with its head cut open and begins to remember the dream before Polnareff pulls him away. Joseph and Jotaro, meanwhile, struggle to secure their plane as a baby has come down with a sickness and needs to be taken to a doctor. The group is hesitant to take a baby with them, but because they are on a time crunch, they decide to take it. On the plane, Polnareff and Kakyoin fall asleep and are brought to the amusement park in the dream world. Polnareff laughs it off and says that there is nothing to worry about, but suddenly the dead dog from earlier releases a megaphone and giant eyeball from its stomach, and the enemy stand is revealed as Death 13, a creature in black bishop's robes and a clown mask. Death 13 grabs Polnareff, and the Frenchman attempts to summon his stand, but is unable to. Just as Death 13 is about to kill Polnareff, Joseph wakes Polnareff up, with no recollection of the dream and having to change the baby's diaper. Kakyoin, still held within the dream, attempts to fight back against Death 13. His flailing translates to the real world, and a kick hits Joseph in the face, causing the plane to nosedive. Death 13 traps Kakyoin in a wall and fills his mouth with eyeballs to stop his flailing. Kakyoin attempts to wake himself up by stabbing himself with a knife, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Joseph uses Hermit Purple to balance out the plane before immediately crashing it again. The crew recovers what they can from the plane as Kakyoin treats his wounds before noticing that in the dream, he carved into his arm the words baby and stand. Kakyoin confronts the baby, and everyone begins to suspect him of losing his mind. Kakyoin begins to doubt himself, but his suspicions about the baby are confirmed when he sees it kill a scorpion with a safety pin, even attacking it with Hierophant Green before Polnareff knocks him out. The group falls asleep, ending up in Death 13's dream world again. Polnareff remembers the dream, but he, along with Jotaro and Joseph, are immobilized. Jotaro attempts to summon Star Platinum, but it is revealed to be a fake created by Death 13. Death 13 attempts to finish off the group, but is attacked by Hierophant Green. Kakyoin revealing he hit Hierophant Green in the ground when he was knocked out. Hierophant Green begins choking Death 13, but the enemy's stand attempts to counterattack by forming clouds into a hand to take control of Death 13's scythe. It seemingly cuts Hierophant Green in half, but Kakyoin reveals that he used Hierophant Green's possession ability to unravel itself before it could be cut. Kakyoin forces Death 13 to heal his wounds, and everyone wakes up with no memory of the fight save Kakyoin. Kakyoin tells the baby that he went easy on it because of his age, and that he needs to go back to his mother, but not before dropping a piece of poop into the baby's food as punishment. The group is eventually rescued and begins heading to an island off the Arabian Peninsula, as Joseph mentions that they need to meet a very important man there who is necessary to the completion of the journey. End of episodes.
How short. Wow.
Yeah, this was not even a full page of a summary.
My notes aren't even a full page. It's just because the next two episodes are going to be so dummy beefy.
Yeah, the next two episodes are short.
Well, probably not beefy. they're just going to be like, there's just a lot.
There's way more to break down in the next two episodes than there are in these two episodes. But for now, why don't we just do the tarot breakdown real quick?
Fantastic.
So upright, death represents transformation, endings, change, transition, letting go, and release. While in reverse, it represents fear of change, repeating negative patterns, resisting change, stagnancy, and decay. Now, to be honest, I don't really have a lot to say about these episodes. I have one connection to Persona that I could talk about because death, the tarot card, and just as a metaphysical concept, is a really big theme of Persona 3 specifically. But I can get into that now, or if you want to go first, we can do that.
Straight up, I can't see a lot of connections there. I don't know. The weird baby was not even really a character. He was just like, yes, I am a genius and I am evil, and I don't, who knows how DL hired him or came across him. Just like, oh, what are your abilities? I am a baby. I can't even talk. Hired, how'd that happen? That's the one thing I'm curious about. I can't even even all the tarot listings, it's like, it wasn't that much. I mean, I was trying to think of ways I can even stretch it, but even those stretches were too much of stretches to even be considered.
The only stretch that I have is that resisting change / fear of change is sort of Death 13's weakness, is that it operates in the exact same way every time.
And it also is afraid, it's like, yes, I can't, as long as there's no stand in here, then I will always win. And then there's just one little change, oh yes, there is one stand in here. It's like, okay, suddenly I'm completely useless.
Yeah, and Hierophant Green is probably the second weakest stand out of the Stardust Crusaders.
Yeah, and it still takes him down.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even take very long. Most of it is just everyone's like, oh no, Cac is crazy.
Yeah, this is it's kind of weird because I mean, this may or may not be evidence of Araki writing as he goes along, but I feel this was probably supposed to be similar to the Empress episodes where we have a little bit of Joseph development as a treat. This was supposed to be a little bit of Kakyoin development, except based on what we learn later, it doesn't really play into things at all.
It doesn't really develop him. It just further introduces him as a character, because he's definitely the quietest of the group. Everyone else is just nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the only one that's not nuts. It's kind of interesting to see how all of the people that are absolutely crazy are now seeing the one normal person seem to be off the wall, and they're like, okay, you're not okay. And he's like, but guys, but you gotta trust me, there's something wrong here. And he's just even that him, he's doubting himself. It's like, wait, am I crazy? Am I seeing things?
I mean, maybe the one thing I could stretch here is that, Kakyoin's backstory, as we'll learn later, is basically that because his stand, he had it from such an early age, he was kind of socially isolated, and that's what's kind of happening here. Because everyone thinks he's crazy, he's sort of being no one trusts him, no one believes him, and it's kind of affecting him and his relationship with everyone.
I wouldn't even call that a stretch. That seems pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that makes it sort of not as good as it maybe could have been is that, well, one, if you're watching these episodes blind, you don't know Kakyoin's backstory at that point. And also, it just doesn't go anywhere, is the thing. There's no moment of introspection or, like Kakyoin doesn't feel like emotionally betrayed or anything. He's just kind of like, I need to figure out a way to kill Death 13. Like the conflict is very much external, and even though there's like potential for internal conflict, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, it could. It's just Kak deserved better. It's throughout the entire series, he just deserved better because he could have been pretty interesting. Like in part 5, you got like Giorno, and he's a very subtle character, just like Kakyoin is, except there is more to Giorno, more is
Yeah.
shown. But with Kakyoin, it's just really not shown that much. It's just sort of there a little bit, but not really. And one of the weakest points is when it's like, ah, yes, you're going to get your whole backstory, like right when he's dead. It's just like,
Right.
like, well, I'm like literally on the verge of death. Time to have my whole backstory. I'm like, yo, that would have been pretty useful a long time ago for
Mm-hmm.
purposes of knowing why he is the way he is and any possible character development that could happen.
Yeah, I mean I think it's
They done did him dirty.
they done did him dirty indeed.
There's a lot of D's happening there.
I think I don't know. It's just kind of disappointing, and like I think we have sort of cracked the code on like definitely what we've talked about uh with Stardust Crusaders so far. Like I do appreciate Avdol like a lot more as a character than I did the first time I watched the series. Um but Kakyoin is like not there for me yet.
Yeah, it's just like Abdul and Kakyoin are both like severely underdeveloped, but Kakyoin got the even shorter end of the stick.
Yeah,
At least
definitely.
at least Abdul got some very meaningful interactions with like Polnareff and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something there to be seen about him. There was like subtle things that were harder to notice that you had to pick up on. But with Kakyoin, it's like, yes, he is the shy boy, but like he doesn't do much.
He really doesn't.
He tries his very best though.
I mean, I think it really just comes down to missed potential. I feel like they like Avdol, I think, his interactions with Polnareff are really what drives his development. Um, and I think Jotaro's interactions with the whole group, but also like mostly with Joseph sort of drives his development. And I feel like Kakyoin just kind of got the short end of the stick. Like
He got
he
some good moments with Jotaro, but like not as much as he could have had.
I mean, he has funny moments with Jotaro, but I think it's really lacking on any sort of like emotional resonance. I have an easy time believing that Jotaro, Joseph, Polnareff, and Avdol are all friends. Like Kakyoin, like I can believe it a little bit. like
I've noticed a lot though throughout like the whole series that like Kakyoin doesn't really have any moments with anyone except for Jotaro every once in a while, and they seem to have like this weird unspoken like vibe with each other, where it's like they're both Japanese students, and they're both around the same age, so they seem to have this like, I don't know, it's just like you ever have like that one friend that you just like sort of can communicate with just by giving them looks.
yeah,
And with you one, especially when you're with a bunch of people that are very much not like you, that's the sort of vibe they have going, I think.
no, totally. And I mean, I really think, yeah, I'm sorry to keep saying missed potential, but that's what it is.
It
I
is
feel
what it
like
is.
I'm just thinking as well because you think about like the fact
It
that
could have been more.
You think about the fact that like Jotaro is sort of modeled after like delinquents and stuff like that, and Kakyoin is like the complete opposite, where he's like he's like the total honors student, teacher's pet type guy, and just nothing ever comes out of that.
Rip.
I mean, at least we can say that we certainly won't be talking about this as a problem in the future, because I feel like every single part after this is a much better job in fleshing out the entire cast,
Oh yes, most definitely. Even
particularly
in
part 4 and 5.
part 5 just like goes into everybody very pretty in depth. Part 4
Mm-hmm.
does it pretty well, but like part 5, they all get like a big moment, like even like way before any. It's like, all right, so Araki tends to give characters like big moments sometimes, and oftentimes it's expressed in like backstories and stuff, and then like stuff that happens in the present. And then in part 5, everyone gets their like ending. Everyone actually gets an ending to their character. There's a beginning and an end to them, but in part 3, there's oftentimes no beginning and no end. It's just sort of stagnation.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the one character who does have a beginning and end to his arc is Polnareff.
Oh yes, most definitely.
But yeah, everyone else is just kind of hung to dry a little bit.
I would, yeah. Polnareff definitely gets a beginning and an end. Joseph doesn't really get a beginning or an end, I don't think.
I guess maybe
It's
the other character would be Iggy, but like his beginning
Iggy.
is like 90% of his arc, and then the middle is 5%, and then the end is 5%. Like,
Yeah. And then Avdol, I think, gets a beginning but no end. And
yeah,
then Jotaro gets a beginning and like a kind of ending, but like not really.
I don't know. Well, we can spend more time on that as we keep going along.
And then Kakyoin, I don't think he gets a beginning or an end.
Yeah, he gets an end, but he gets no beginning, I think, is the
Oh
problem.
yeah.
Um, like
And
it's
his end wasn't very well written.
yeah, like it's all out
He
of
gets a
order and
crappy end.
jumbled and just it's weird. I
They
mean,
done
like
did my boy dirty.
I've said this like once or twice, but I think if like there was ever to be like a true remake of any sort of part, I want it to be part 3,
Oh
because
yes, it could be fantastic.
yeah, as it is, and I've definitely said this on the podcast. Part 3 is my uh, second to last in terms of like my most favorite to least favorite parts.
Does it beat part 1?
It does beat part 1 because I mean part 1 is like pretty. I I I don't think it's controversial to say that part 1
Yeah.
is like pretty mediocre.
I would say that part 1 does beat part 3 on a few things and vice versa.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I would agree, but
I feel like part 1 has a very satisfying beginning. I've said this a million times. I love the beginning of part 1. Like the first 3 episodes are brilliant. I came across an interview with Dio's voice actor, his original Japanese voice actor, and he literally straight up said he thought the first 3 episodes were perfect and he got like really into playing the character, but afterwards it just didn't feel right anymore. I mean,
yeah,
that's
I
because
think
the first 3 are brilliant.
part 1 Dio is a lot more interesting and compelling of a villain compared to part 3 Dio, as we've said many times.
Part 3 Dio, he's has like they imply some interesting things going for him, but like it just doesn't happen.
I mean, I think this is again the limitation of the formula that Stardust Crusaders operates with, where you know, like you think about part 1, part 2, and I would even say part 5. Like it feels like every episode moves the plot forward in some way. Um, like it rarely feels like that we're just okay. Here's there's no episode like what's a good example? Like Wheel of Fortune. Like there's no like even though that's an enjoyable episode of Stardust Crusaders, like
It's very unimportant.
yeah, exactly. And it compared to almost every other part, like like stuff is constantly happening in the plot, in terms of the characters, and Stardust Crusaders feels like, all right, we're going to do plot for a while, and then you'll have a dash of characters, and then we're going to do more plot. And it's like, it doesn't, the parts are all there, but they just don't mesh well together, I think.
E. In part 4, at least, like, all the minor villains get like a little bit of something. I feel like that's another thing that part 4 and 5 have that especially 3 doesn't have, is that all of the lesser enemies actually feel like people.
Yeah, totally.
And in part 3, it's like a lot of them are fun and just interesting fights, but they don't really feel like people. Some of them do, but most of them don't, I would say.
I mean, it's the difference. Like part 3 is like the popcorn flick. Like this is like,
Popcorn.
you think about how part 1 was such a extremely simple tale of morality. Like Dio is probably like, and notwithstanding the first 3 episodes of Phantom Blood, Dio is probably the most one note villain in the whole series. Um, and it, because Stardust Crusaders follows up on Dio. I mean, this is essentially, it's more of a sequel to part 1 than part 2 is, I would say. I think it just sort of, like, it everything that brought down part 1 also brings down part 3, I think. You've got a lackluster, the supporting cast is not the strongest. You have a villain who is pretty one note. I mean, like, can you remember any of the one-off villains from Phantom Blood? Like, there's the
I
dude with,
only remember them for the memes.
yeah, exactly. Like, there's the dude with like the bag on his head, I think, that they
I
fight for
only
like 2
remember
seconds.
the first thing I thought of was the 4 guys named after all the members of Led Zeppelin, but the only reason I remember them is because they were named after the guys in Led Zeppelin and they were also murdered immediately.
Exactly,
I just thought that was funny.
it's I don't know. It's weird.
You know what? Part 2 was good.
It was. It was.
Part 2 slaps.
And if you disagree, well then listen to the playlist that I put at the end of this episode to hear us talk about it. Shameless plug.
Yo, we tackled part 2 and we did it. We did
um
good.
and remember when we were talking about the Death 13 episode?
That was like 10 minutes ago.
Um
Well, there's not much to talk about. There's like, I said all of most of the things that I had to say, and that's pretty much mostly it.
I guess the one thing I can talk about, I guess I can go into like a Persona tangent now,
Go on the tangent.
because like, all right, so like Persona 3 like is about, as I mentioned previously, is heavily about death, not just in the real life metaphysical sense, but in the tarot sense, where it sort of represents rebirth and change and things like that. And I don't know, the final boss, without giving too much away, is sort of a symbolic representation of death in the tarot. And yeah, I just think it's interesting that you have a like such a pivotal part of like Persona 3 is like a 100-hour game, like if you go for everything. And it's so pivotal to that game's story and like the philosophy of the game and just like everything about it. And then it's just like a random one-off, stand of the week fight in JoJo. I just think it's really funny. But one of the things is that there is almost kind of like in Persona 3, like certain characters have a sort of like reverence for death. Like they just believe it, and like that's what their whole philosophy is, like that, like it's their god basically. Um, and I think it's kind of interesting that like Death 13 kind of has like a priest sort of attire to it, like the cloak and like the goofy hat is like very reminiscent of like clothings of bishops and priests and stuff like that. Um, I don't know. That's all the connection I got because these episodes are really weird. I mean, basically, it's like I think I figured it out. And like I know you haven't seen any Nightmare on Elm Street movies, Emily, but
I have not.
Nightmare on Elm Street, super simple. It's teenage kids versus Freddy Krueger. And like, like Freddy Krueger is not a complex villain, he's pretty one note, by design, of course. And it's like to say it's like, Freddy Krueger in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is these episodes, and you know, that's all you can really say about it.
There isn't much more to say about that other than that Araki just really likes horror movies.
It's true.
So he's just like, what if I just do Freddy Krueger, but he's a stand and also a baby?
Do you want to talk about silly stuff?
I have several silly stuff.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Just the first one. They did a little reference to The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
Polnareff likes to like reference random things in very strange ways. Like, I just feel like every time he references something, it feels very awkward.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird.
Like, it's always like jarring, but I guess it fits with like JoJo's, like the fact that it just references everything.
Weird Al canonically exists in the JoJo universe. Let's see.
I mean, we could talk about
disturbing dog murder. That happened.
Yeah.
It's probably the most disturbing case of dog murder in this whole franchise.
It probably is. I don't know.
At least
I
one
still
of them.
think
It's up there.
the one from the Yellow Temperance fight.
Oh, that one was bad.
It's pretty bad.
I feel like
But
part 3 has the worst dog murder.
it really does. And it's weird that we can say that there's like dog murder in so many parts of JoJo.
Now we're like rating the dog murder like, based on how awful it was. Part 3 has the most disturbing dog murder.
I'm trying to real quick. I'm just trying to remember. The dog murder in part 4 is not that bad. It's pretty tame.
Is there dog murder in part 5? I feel like there has to be.
Yeah, I feel like there is. I don't know. Maybe it's in the. Is it in when they're on the train? And Beach Boy kills a dog.
Oh, yep, of course.
There
has to be. There's at least one murdered dog per part.
And then part 6, I'm trying to remember where
is there dog murder in part 6?
I mean, again, I feel like there's gotta be.
There's gotta be. It happens so often. Wait, is there dog murder in part 2? There was a dog that was not murdered in part 2. I know that. That's
true. That's why part 2 is the best part.
I don't think. Wait, was there an actual case of dog murder in part 2? I'm trying to remember. There was squirrel murder.
Both a squirrel being murdered and a murderer squirrel.
Yes, a squirrel killing another squirrel very violently. And also Joseph like abused a cat for a second, but the cat was fine. He was just mean to the cat.
I can't remember an instance in part 2.
Oh, and there's cat murder in part 3.
In part 6, it's during the Bohemian Rhapsody fight. I mean, I won't give too much away because, you're still reading it, but I think it happens then.
I'm having the best time reading it.
It's so good.
Vibing so hard.
I'm trying to remember other silly stuff in this episode. I guess
I have several more.
Depending on your sense of humor, the ending scene is pretty funny.
But
yeah, that's the worst part though. Is
it's so awful.
Kakyoin just goes, but tis. And
it's also really weird. He just like gains confidence out of nowhere. And
out
then
of
he's like, yes, I am the master of comedy.
out of morbid curiosity, I looked up that scene in the dub as well, and it's also really cursed.
Either way, it's cursed.
It's just like the guy who voices Kakyoin, like no offense to the voice actor, I'm sure it's just how he was directed, but it just sounds like his voice is like kind of on the deeper side, and just a man with like a somewhat deep voice just going bum like with no sense of rhythm is like man. It's weird.
Also, I'm not sure if this happens in the sub, but in the dub at one point Joseph says, holy shit bricks.
I don't think he says that in the dub. I think he says holy shit.
No, at one point he says holy shit bricks. I wrote it down. In the sub, I don't think so. In the dub, he says that once. I think it's when like they first discover like, you know, they're all in the dream, and then like he turned like his prosthetic hand got turned into like a balloon animal, and that's when he says it.
The part like when Kakyoin is threatening the baby, and they're all kind of concerned. It's kind of funny because it's like Jotaro like says something concerned in Japanese, and Polnareff says something concerned in Japanese, and then Joseph just goes, "Oh my god," or something.
There's
like
a lot of oh my gods in these episodes.
Yeah, there is. They're getting more frequent.
Yeah. Very frequent amount. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, the whole time how Polnareff just doesn't know what a baby is.
Yeah. He holds it upside down when he's changing his diaper.
And he doesn't even seem to realize that babies poop. He needs to get a copy of that book, Everybody Poops.
I mean, you know, he does have like, you remember like all the stuff he has to deal with the toilets, you know, like maybe he just doesn't want to think about it.
Trauma.
Toilet trauma.
He just doesn't know what a baby is, and then Joseph like definitely knows what a baby is.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kak is like, I don't care if you're a baby, I'll snap your neck like a twig.
And Jotaro is just yara.
He doesn't even do anything in these episodes. He
really doesn't.
He has like this is probably the 2 episodes that he does the least amount of things.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, and then also breakfast. He just makes them all breakfast. He wakes up super early.
That breakfast looks like really delicious, and it just makes
where did he get the table?
Where did he get all the food?
And the table.
There's
where did he get any of it?
Like it doesn't look like they were carrying like any refrigerated stuff or anything like that, a cooler.
And he's like, I will make you eat your own shit.
Eat shit and die, motherfucker.
He's just suddenly he becomes very threatening out of nowhere.
Yeah.
In the beginning he's like, oh no, I'm crazy, and at the end he's like, I will literally I will do things.
Oh man. All right, do we have anything else?
Do we? Hold on.
I don't.
Let me consult the notes. My notes consisted of half a page. There's not much going on here at all.
How many total note pages do you have now out of interest?
Ooh, 34.
God, jeez.
34.
Man.
I want to see what happens by like the end, how many there are.
Yeah, once we get to Golden Wind, it'll probably be like 200.
Probably. I mean, this is like, we're like halfway. Wait, how far are we through part 3?
We're like, almost halfway through.
Almost halfway. Yeah, it'll probably be like 100.
Mm-hmm.
I want Stone Ocean anime.
Give it to me. Put
Give
it in my veins.
Me now. Just inject me with Stone Ocean anime.
Yeah, so if there's
that do be it, I think.
Yeah, if there's not anything else, it's a bit of a shorter episode, but like we said, the one
baby episode, get it?
The one next week will probably be a beefer, but until such time, if you want to see all the silly, semi-serious stuff that I post about on the internet, you can follow me at Thomas M. Brickman on Twitter. I also do another podcast with my buddy Kevin. We're still on hiatus at the time of this recording, but if you just want to go through the archives, listen to two guys chill out, have a relaxing time talking about video games, you can find it on YouTube by searching post-game content. And if you want to keep up with news and everything relating to that podcast, you can also follow the social media at postgamecon. That's at postgamecon. And Emily, where can people locate you on Trey Internet?
Twitter at Emily Winkles. That is where I am. I post a number of things.
And if you want to keep up with all the news memes that sometimes Emily makes, sometimes Emily finds, you can keep up with all that at iwanttofightar1 on Twitter and iwanttofightaraki on Instagram. And with all that said, we'll see you guys next time when we cover Stardust Crusaders episodes 21 and 22. We'll see you guys then.